The struggle is real. You want to be able to burn while soloing over a jazz song, but you just can't seem to figure out what to play over all these chords that keep flying by, right? I want to share with you the real deal stuff that will clear up the mystery around how to improvise jazz. Go from this to this. I wish this was taught to me when I went to jazz school. I felt lost in a sea of information and not given any strategies on how to execute everything. And there's a good chance that you probably feel like that too right now, right? So let's work on a song together. Strategies without gobs of information so that you're not back to feeling too overwhelmed again. Showing you by playing is great, which I am definitely going to do. But in order to get you to really understand, I'm going to have to do some explanation along the way. I will make things as concise as possible. I want you to really get it. Scales are not going to be the focus, but you do have to know your chords. A little bit of knowledge goes a long way. You have to know what notes make up any chord that's in the song that you want to solo over. If you are already a master of knowing chord construction, skip to the time popping up to get to the code, the real stuff. If you are a little new to jazz, we nearly always use 4-note chords as a minimum. This is what I want you to focus on. A root note, the note you build the chord from, then the third, the fifth, and then a seventh. If knowing how chords are built is totally new to you, this video will be so helpful to you. Using a C7 chord as an example, the formula for all dominant 7 chords, which is just another common name for a 7 chord, is root 3, 5, flat 7. Remember, the 7th has to be flat or else it's not a 7 chord. That would be called a major 7. So if we want to create a 7 chord, these are the notes: C, E, G, B flat. Now, if we keep going, by selecting every other note, we get a chord all the way to the 13th. Now it's a chord. Now it's a scale. Now it's a chord. Now it's a scale. Now it's a chord. Same information. So I hope that it helps clear up where the 9, 11, and 13 come into play, if those numbers ever confused you. So now that we have all the basic chord information covered, we're going to concentrate on those 4 notes, root 3, 5, 7, and root 3, 5, 6 in some cases. Now for the cheat code. You have to be able to play something that makes sense, right? Something that links a series of chords together with a cohesive thread. That's where the notes of each chord come in. We call them chord tones. We're going to weave a thread of chord tones inside of our improvised line. Let's get used to placing our strong sounding notes on the strong beats of the measure, beats 1 and 3. I'm going to show you how to learn your chords and where to place these notes all in one exercise. Play through the song that you want to work on. In this case, I chose What Is This Thing Called Love, and simply play the chord tones on beats 1 and 3, like this. These notes provide footing and allow you to stay grounded in the chord that you're on. There's 10 chords in the song to learn. Not really that many. Some songs have way more chords. Here's a list of 10 chords and the chord tones for each one. Try the whole song with me now. When you're practicing this on your own, do it differently every time and different tempos, not just the one way that I'm using in each example. That's just to teach you the process. Try to pick a different chord tone each time. I want to give you the tools to keep practicing this on your own and apply this to any song. It should be a different outcome each time. It's not about figuring out one way. Improvising isn't working out something in advance. The next step is to fill in the spaces between our strategically placed chord tones. Instead of starting a line from a chord tone, you have to think of instead of playing into the chord tones. Start by approaching each chord tone from a half step below. By the way, don't be afraid to repeat these examples several times until you grasp it. I'll make it easy for you by timestamping everything. Okay, you might be thinking, wait a minute, this isn't a shortcut. You're right. I never said it was going to be a shortcut. This is the fastest way to get you sounding like you know what the hell you're doing without wasting years on your own trying to figure this all out. Okay, some tough love. Which is it? Take years and years and years to try and figure this all out? Or take a few months and sound good that much sooner? To me, it's not a hard thing to answer. If your background is blues and rock, you're likely not too worried about what notes you played, when you played them, and why. This is probably a very different and new way of doing things to you. Learning anything new requires patience. So give yourself some slack and just keep working at it, and trust that your self-guided study will eventually get you to where you want to be. Okay, enough with the pep talk. Let's keep exploring ways to keep playing into the chord tones. How about a whole step above the chord tone, then play another note a half step below before landing on our note? Let's just do the first 8 measures this time. What we just did is called an enclosure. We're playing notes surrounding the chord tone before we land on it. Here's another enclosure. This is one of my favorites. Let's say this G on our 4th string is our target note. It starts a whole step above, then down a half step, then back to one that's a half step below the chord tone, and then finally land on our power note right there. Here's what this one would sound like in context. There are so many ways to approach a chord tone or a target note. So let me show you some. We could approach from a whole step above. From a half step above. A 2-note enclosure that starts a half step below, then moving to a half step above before landing on the target note. A 2-note enclosure that starts a half step below, this time moving to a whole step above before landing on the target note. This is a 3-note enclosure that starts a half step below, moving to a whole step above the target note, then down another half step before we do land on our juicy chord tone. Here's a 5-note enclosure that works great in 3/4. Starting a whole step below the target note, then you move up another half step, then bounce up a whole step above, then down another half step, before finally landing on the chord tone on beat 1 each time. This is what it sounds like. One works really well in 4/4, where it resolves one beat further back each time, giving a cool off-kilter staggered resolution for twisting the ear in a really cool way. By the way, some of you may have caught that I targeted the 6th of the chord as if it was a C6 instead of a C major 7. That's because the 6th usually works better than the 7th, at least in my opinion, and it gives you a more traditional jazz sound. The major 7 can work, try it, but I always convert the major 7 to a 6 chord, whether it's a major chord or a minor. You can connect the chord tones with bits of scales, arpeggios, different subdivisions like triplets and 16th notes, even simple chromatic runs. All is fair game. So here's what I recommend. Play through the song's chord changes of whatever song you're working on until you've exhausted all possible ways, using as many approaches and enclosures that you can think of. Make up your own. You just be creative. And do it in different places on your fretboard if you're a guitar player. It really is like learning a new language. You're not going to be able to converse freely in a matter of days. You learn, you practice, and play it even if it sounds awkward at first. But keep going. Eventually, you forget about the rules and just play. But please don't be the person that just watches this or any video of mine and doesn't try to work on the material on your own. I really, truly want you to reach your goals and sound better in a month than you do today. Yep, you can like and subscribe if you want more from me in the future, and that's great. Thank you. Watch this video that goes into another really important side of jazz improvisation that no one talks about. And yes, you guessed it, it's not scales.